The air in the courtroom was thick enough to taste, a bitter cocktail of anxiety, cheap perfume, and despair. Every polished wooden bench in the Colorado Springs District Court was filled, the spectators leaning forward as one, their collective breath held. They weren't here for the petty theft case. They were here for the spectacle. All eyes were fixed on the small figure walking toward the judge's bench. Her name was Lily. At 7 years old, she was a wisp of a thing, with hair the color of faded wheat and eyes that held the unsettling stillness of a mountain lake. Her second-hand dress was clean but threadbare, and her scuffed shoes echoed with a soft, determined click against the marble floor. Judge Evelyn Shaw presided from her wheelchair, a titanium and leather throne she had occupied for 5 long years. A former marathon runner, her life had been cleaved in two by a hit-and-run driver on a rain-slicked highway. The Iron Judge, they called her now, a woman whose sentencing was as rigid and unyielding as the metal frame beneath her. Lily reached the bench and had to tilt her head all the way back to meet the judge's gaze. "Your Honor," the little girl's voice was clear, a crystal bell in the stifling room. "Please don't send my daddy away. I can fix what's broken inside you." A wave of muffled laughter, sharp and derisive, rippled through the crowd. A bailiff coughed to hide a smirk. The prosecutor, a handsome, sharp-suited man named David Shunn, shook his head with a condescending smile. But Judge Shaw didn't laugh. She felt a strange, almost electric jolt, a ghost of a sensation in her deadened legs. She leaned forward, her hands gripping the wheels of her chair. "Child," her voice was stern, weathered by years of verdicts. "The law is not swayed by promises. Your father is guilty." Lily stood her ground, her small fists clenched at her sides. "He took the medicine because I was sick. He was scared. But you're not scared. You're just stuck." She took a deep breath. "I can make the music play again. In your legs. I can make you dance again. Just let my daddy come home." The prosecutor shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is absurd. This courtroom is not a stage for childhood fantasies. The defendant committed a felony. The law is clear." Judge Shaw held up a hand, her sharp eyes locked on Lily. The girl's gaze was unnerving, ancient and knowing. She saw no lie there, only a terrifying, absolute certainty. "And if you cannot?" the judge asked, her voice dropping, the words meant only for the child. "If this is just a story, then I will go to the foster home instead," Lily replied, her voice unwavering. "And you can keep your silence." A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. The man at the defendant's table, a gaunt, hollow-cheeked man named Ben Miller, cried out, "Lily, no. Baby, don't." Judge Shaw felt the weight of the entire justice system pressing down on her. Her logic, her entire professional existence, screamed that this was insanity. Her medical files were a catalog of impossibility. T12 complete spinal cord injury. No motor function. No sensory function. Miracles did not happen in courtrooms. They happened in peer-reviewed journals. But the girl had spoken of music, of dancing. No one knew about the music. The song, Claire de Lune, had been playing on her car stereo when the truck had swerved. The last beautiful thing she'd heard before the world exploded into glass and steel. She had never been able to listen to it since. The memory was a shard of ice in her heart. Yet this child, this pauper in a worn-out dress, had named the very thing she had lost. 30 days, Judge Evelyn Shaw heard herself say, the words echoing in the profound silence. "I will suspend your father's sentence for 30 days. He will be released into your custody. If by the end of that time you can make me stand, the charges will be expunged." She paused, the judge in her reasserting control. "And if you fail, your father will serve a maximum sentence for his crime, and you will be remanded to the state's care. Do you understand terms?" "Understand," Lily said, a single, solemn nod. "The music will play again." The apartment was a single room in a dilapidated complex on the wrong side of the interstate, smelling of mildew and regret. Ben Miller sat on the edge of a sunken couch, his face buried in his work-roughened hands. "Lily, what did you do?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "They're going to take you from me. It was just some antibiotics. I would have paid them back." Lily was by the small, grimy window, watching the traffic crawl by below. "It's not about the medicine, Daddy. You were trying to fix me. Now I have to fix her. She's paralyzed, honey. Doctors can't fix that. She's not broken her legs, Lily said, her breath fogging the glass. She's broken her time. It stopped. I can feel it. Meanwhile, in her minimalist penthouse with its panoramic views of the Rockies, Judge Shaw stared at her reflection in the dark screen of her television. The girl's words echoed. Make the music play again. She wheeled herself to a locked drawer in her desk. Inside, beneath a stack of legal briefs, was a single, unlabeled CD. The mix she had been listening to that night. She had never dared to play it. How could that child have known? The next afternoon, Lily appeared at the judge's downtown loft, alone. She carried a small backpack. I need to see where the silence lives, she stated, walking in without waiting for an invitation. Judge Shaw, unnerved, allowed it. Lily moved through the spacious, sterile rooms. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the bare surfaces, the expensive but soulless art. It was a beautiful cage. You have no plants, Lily observed. I have no time for them. Music needs life to grow, the girl replied, as if it were a fundamental law of physics. From her backpack, she produced a small, terracotta pot, a bag of soil, and a single, wrinkled seed. This is a moonflower. It blooms at night, when it's quiet. You have to help it. This is not physical therapy, the judge said, a flare of her old impatience rising. It's soul therapy, Lily countered. Your soul has forgotten how to grow. This will remind it. Days blurred into a week. Lily's methods were baffling. She brought the judge a smooth, gray river stone, still cold from the creek, and placed it in her hand. Feel its weight, she instructed. It remembers the mountain it came from. You have to remember who you were before, too. She had the judge sit on her balcony in the morning sun, blindfolded, and describe the world only by its sounds and smells. You're listening to the world's heartbeat, Lily explained. You stopped listening to your own. She presented the judge with a complex, 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, an image of a starry night sky, and insisted they work on it together, in silence. You are putting the broken pieces of your sky back together, the girl whispered during one of these sessions. The picture is still there. You just have to find it. Judge Evelyn Shaw, the woman who had commanded courtrooms and dictated fates, found herself obeying the gentle commands of a 7-year-old. She planted the seed. She held the stone until it warmed to her touch. She listened. She pieced together the fragments of a cardboard universe. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, the ice around her heart began to thaw. She started asking Ben about his work as a mechanic when he came to pick up Lily. She learned he'd been laid off from the GM plant, that he'd been choosing between Lily's medicine and the electric bill. She saw the raw, terrified love in his eyes, and the file labeled "The State versus Benjamin Miller" began to feel like a grotesque oversimplification of a human being. One evening, Lily placed the unlabeled CD on the judge's lap. It's time, she said softly. Evelyn's breath hitched. With trembling hands, she rolled to her stereo system. She slid the disc in. She hovered her finger over the play button, a lifetime of fear and grief welling up inside her. Lily placed a small, warm hand on her arm. It's just music, the girl said. It can't hurt you anymore. Evelyn pressed play. The first, familiar notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune filled the room. So beautiful it was a physical ache. Tears she didn't know she still had streamed down her face. She wasn't back in the car. She was right here, in her living room, hearing it anew. The broken record of her trauma had finally skipped forward. And as the music swelled, a violent, searing cramp twisted through her left calf. A spasm, the doctors would later say. But in that moment, it felt like a lightning strike from a sky she thought would forever be overcast. She gasped, her eyes flying open. Lily simply smiled. See? The music is playing. The 30th day arrived. The courtroom was a pressure cooker of anticipation. News vans were parked outside. The air was electric with cynicism and a faint, desperate hope. Judge Shaw wheeled herself to the bench. Lily and Ben stood before her. Prosecutor Chun wore the smug expression of a man who believed order was about to be restored. Your Honor, he began, smoothing his tie. The 30-day period has elapsed. I move for the immediate sentencing of the defendant. This charade has gone on long enough. Every eye in the room dropped to the judge's motionless legs. Nothing. A wave of disappointed murmurs passed through the crowd. Judge Shaw looked at Lily. The girl gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. The child, Judge Shaw's voice rang out, silencing the room, did not promise to make me walk. Confusion spread like a stain. She promised to fix what was broken inside me. The judge's gaze swept over the spectators, the press, her fellow officers of the court. She promised to make me whole. And that, she said, her voice softening, is a promise she has kept. She spoke then, not as a judge, but as a woman. She spoke of the moonflower, now a tender green vine on her balcony. She spoke of the river stone that sat on her desk, a paperweight for the mountain of grief she had finally moved. She spoke of the starry night puzzle, completed, hanging on her wall. And she spoke of the music, which once was a trigger for pain and was now just beautiful again. The law deals in facts, she concluded. And the fact is, Benjamin Miller committed an act of desperation born of love, not malice. The greater crime would be to compound that desperation by shattering the extraordinary spirit of his daughter. The case is dismissed. The courtroom exploded in sound. Ben Miller sobbed, pulling Lily into a crushing hug. David Chun stood dumbfounded, his legal arguments rendered meaningless in the face of this human verdict. But Lily was still looking at the judge. "You hear it, don't you?" she said, her voice barely a whisper, yet carrying to the bench. And Evelyn Shaw did. It wasn't a sound, but a feeling, a profound, internal resonance, a chord that had been struck deep within her soul and was now humming, alive and vibrant. Time, which had been frozen at the moment of her accident, had finally, definitively, started to flow forward. She hadn't been healed of her paralysis. She had been healed of her own life sentence of grief. As the bailiff called for order, a practical miracle occurred. A young, flustered reporter, backing away to get a better shot, tripped over a power cord and stumbled hard into the judge's wheelchair. The brake disengaged, and the chair shot forward, tipping violently and spilling Judge Shaw onto the hard floor. A collective cry of alarm. People surged forward. "Stop," the judge commanded, her voice raw with a new power. There, on the cold, unyielding floor of her own courtroom, she pushed herself up onto her elbows, ignoring the panicked voices around her, focusing every ounce of her will, every bit of the strength Lily had helped her rediscover. She began to drag her body. It was an ugly, graceless, agonizing crawl. Not an inch of it was powered by her legs. It was all shoulders, arms, and a ferocious, resurrected will. She wasn't walking, but she was moving, under her own steam, for the first time in 5 years. Tears of pure, undiluted triumph mixed with the dust on the floor. She looked up and met Lily's gaze. The girl was smiling, a quiet, profound smile that held no surprise, only fulfillment. The music was playing. The journey had begun. The final image would be of the moonflower on the judge's balcony, its first white blossom unfurling in the twilight. It was scarred, its petals slightly imperfect, but it was breathtakingly beautiful. A perfect symbol. They had all laughed at the poor girl's promise, until they saw that the most powerful healing is not of the body, but of the spirit. And that sometimes a healed spirit is enough to make the impossible happen, one painful, courageous inch at a time.